Well, Alzheimer's has been the focus of films, awareness drives and national campaigns. But for most of the Indian families, it still slips through the cracks. Recent studies by AIIMS and international researchers suggest that over 8.8 lakh Indians above the age of 60 are currently living with dementia, most of them undiagnosed. Memory loss gets brushed off as normal aging, confusion is treated like stubbornness, language slips, behavior changes, mood swings, all ignored until it's too late. The science is clear: diabetes, high blood pressure, air pollution, inactivity, all of these factors raise the risk. Women, worryingly, are more likely to be affected, and India's population, remember, is aging fast. We've seen films like Sayyara and the very latest trying to shift that conversation a little bit, but the support system on ground still hasn't caught up. Caught up to an extent that we see real change take place on ground zero. Caregivers are left to manage on their own, treatment is expensive, public memory clinics are rare. So from support system to public policy to picking up on the symptoms before it's too late, the Breakfast Club has got it all covered for you this morning as we go back to celebrating World Alzheimer's Day to spread awareness around this disease. And so joining us this morning is Dr. Manjari Tripathi, Professor of Neurology at AIIMS and one of the country's leading voices on Alzheimer's and brain health. Good morning, Dr. Manjari. Hope you're doing well.
Good morning.
Thank you for taking out the time. It's a very important conversation, perhaps one that goes unnoticed, is really not brought onto breakfast table. So we decided to do just that this morning. Dr. Manjari, can I begin by asking you a very simple question? A lot of us end up forgetting small little things every now and then, but sometimes people forget that there could be much more to that. What is that one sign that you must follow very closely? Try and understand that the worry could be a lot more than just simple forgetting. So let's start with basics. When do you need to warn yourself, tell yourself that you need to go check with a doctor?
So yes, we all forget, but we remember we forgot. We eventually get back to what we forgot, and when we retract our steps, we trace what we forgot. However, when we age, we forget, and we don't even remember we have forgotten. Somebody else has to remind us that you have forgotten. So that is the first step. And you know, there is an overdue emphasis on memory. Alzheimer's is not just about memory. It's a change from the baseline. So if your baseline was something at 60 and at 65, your baseline has dipped from that significantly, such that you are trying and becoming more dependent on others, then any change from the baseline, whether it be memory, whether it be reading, writing, understanding, communication, talking, personality, becoming withdrawn or becoming hyper, a change from the baseline. Then, of course, the calculations, hisab kitab gaya. So calculations and finding your ways around familiar places, it also dips. So if there's a dip, that's the time where one must go to a cognitive disorders. I will not call it just a memory clinic, a cognitive disorders clinic, because there are non-memory onsets of Alzheimer's, which get missed. So memory plus any of these, a change from the baseline noticed by the patient or by the caregivers.
Dr. Manjari, this is not just about memory loss, right? There's so much more that comes with Alzheimer's. There are so many who also confuse or almost make Alzheimer's sound synonymous with dementia. So all Alzheimer's could be dementia patients, but the vice versa is not true. So clear out a little bit of that myth for us. Tell us how this is not just age-related brain loss or memory loss. There's so much more to it.
So dementia is like an umbrella term, okay? You have an umbrella and you have the spokes of the umbrella which form the parts of the umbrella. Now, there are variety of causes of dementia. A major chunk of which is Alzheimer's, followed by vascular. So if you've had strokes in the past, if you've had silent strokes in the brain, if you've had changes due to hypertension and diabetes in the brain, that forms a vascular dementia. Then another part of it is frontotemporal dementia, where the behavior goes for a 6. They become disinhibited, they become suspicious, They start hitting out at people. They start disrobing and coming out. So that's frontotemporal dementia. But fortunately, that's a very small chunk. Then you have Parkinson's with dementia. So you have Parkinson's disease, and slowly your memory starts going and your visuospatial starts going. Your behavior changes, your personality changes. So that's Parkinson's with dementia. Then you have, fortunately in our country, we have a lot of people who have reversible causes. Like they have a low B12 level, they have hypothyroidism, or they have other endocrinal imbalances, or they have obstructive sleep apnea. Now, when you have obstructive sleep apnea, your brain is not getting enough oxygen. So that's another very important cause of reversible dementia. So we do have a significant chunk of reversible dementias also. Then you have other hereditary familial dementias. So all these, under the umbrella are causes of dementia, of which Alzheimer's is one.
Dr. Manjari, now help us understand, for anyone watching this, they're going to be wondering, what can we do to get to a point wherein we're aging more gracefully in terms of our brain development, wherein we're not having to give up on our memory, let's say when we're in 60s or 70s, for instance, because there are people well into their 90s who very well are aware of their surroundings, whose memory is as intact as it could get. What can people do? How much of it is to do with lifestyle, proper eating habits? Tell us a little bit about what needs to be done at the right time to live a healthier life in terms of your brain as well.
I'm glad you asked this, because these are the super agers. And we see them daily in our day-to-day lives. They're 95, 97 years old, who are still writing books, So we want to know what they do. So there are certain heavy prevention, strategies available to us. They are within our hands. And the most important of it is our lifestyle. So the lifestyle has to be such that we avoid diabetes or correct diabetes. We avoid hypertension or correct hypertension. We have good sleep. We remove insomnia. We remove obstructive sleep apnea. Because in sleep, what's happening is the pipes, which are known as lymphatics, are pulling away all toxins when you sleep. When you're sleep deprived, this action goes and there's a deposition of harmful proteins in the brain which cannot be removed. So these are preventable. Then, of course, a major chunk, which I find even young girls doing now, is smoking. If you remove smoking, you're not going to get dementia. If you remove alcohol, you're not going to get dementia. Unfortunately, we all in Delhi cannot remove pollution. We are all exposed to it. So indirectly, we are all smoking and we are at a high risk for developing dementia. So these are some of the preventable things. But other things is be on your toes, sitting for a long time, Sitting is the new smoking. So be on your toes. Every 20 minutes, get up and walk. Come back and sit again. Then learn new activities as you age, whatever they may be. They may be a new language, no Tamil, no Hindi. Just learn a new language or learn a new instrument. You may learn a flute or, a violin if you are the instrument or musical kind. Or learn a new game, learn chess or learn Sudoku, learn puzzles and do them every day with your social network of friends. Most important, as we age, we should have a purpose of life. In fact, we should not be idle. However small the purpose may be, whether it's keeping your community clean, whether it's, helping somebody who's sick, reach the hospital. So have a purpose of life within your community as you age. Don't give up on life. Then network. Have a good network of friends whom you socialize and feel happy. You release your happiness chemicals, whether it's a laughter club, whether it's just sharing stories or old memories or old picnics or going for a picnic. Have pets at home who you can look after and interact with, or most important, have grandchildren whom you can look after because they will also have a meaningful interaction. Then your diet. If the diet is highly refined as it is getting now, if you're consuming a lot of pasta, noodles, pastries, and what you have, you're not eating a healthy diet, maida, whatever. You have to have the khada diet, the millets, the whole wheat, your pulses, your haldi. West has gone crazy over curcumin, and we want white foods, okay? Haldi is something which strongly prevents Alzheimer's dementia, and it's been proven not just in humans but also in rats. So having food mixed with haldi, having milk mixed with haldi, having good oils. The good oils is mustard oil, olive oil, a little bit of ghee, a little bit of vegetable oils, avoiding the saturated fats like dalda, vanaspati. Avoid them. Eat at home. Generally when you eat at home, you're going to be knowing what you're eating, considering the fact that many foods nowadays are adulterated. One doesn't know what's in it when you eat out. So eating at home, making food at home and eating it, it's a healthy choice that you have to make. Eating greens, eating sprouts, and limiting your red meat or removing red meat. Red meat is a no-no for dementia. Eating fruits, berries, dry fruits, walnuts, almonds, these are all very good for our brain health. And they're not just good for our brain health, they're also good for our heart health. So really you need to follow all these things. Apart from that,
what about almonds? Because, we've heard our grandparents and parents tell us since the word go, eat almonds first thing in the morning, summers as well, soaked almonds. That's your recipe for a sharper brain. How much of a role does that really play? Yeah.
So a fistful of almonds and walnuts, soaked particularly, you can have them at night. Now, walnuts, they also release melatonin, which is going to help you sleep. Rather than get addicted to alprazolam, which is going to cause dementia or be a risk factor. There are many drugs which people use which actually cause dementia. One of them is the benzodiazepine alprazolam. One of them is amitriptyline. So if you're going to use a fistful of walnuts which are soaked in the night and sleep, you're going to cause food releasing melatonin for you. Cherries at night, this food releasing melatonin for you. So melatonin is going to help you sleep. Sleep is going to help you suck out all your toxins. So these are all the lifestyle choices that we have to make, not at the age of 60. From 35, 40. Okay, fool around till 35, do what you have to. But then after that, you have to learn that you are enjoying your life now. You've enjoyed it. Now let's make sure that you are able to enjoy it for a longer time, not just for yourself, but your caregivers. Because Alzheimer's hits not only you, but it also hits your caregiver, who is paying to see you the way that you are now and who has to look after you because they or he or she loves you. And it is, it may take away their jobs, especially if it's a nuclear family. It's just one or two people. The lady may have to give up a job to look after the father-in-law or father, whatever. So basically, you have to make sure that you are living healthy, and the choices you make at 35 and 40 are going to make you non-dependent when you're older.
I love how you've given us an overview of nutrition, the right food in your system as well. And the two things that have stuck with me is one, of course, don't give up on enhancing your cognitive skills. And two, keep clocking those 7,000, 10,000 steps every day. That's a thumb rule, I think, overall, all healthcare professionals have given us or to our viewers on The Breakfast Club. Dr. Manjari, I want to touch upon what you just said about caregivers, because that's one part of this large conversation that's often unnoticed, goes unnoticed, isn't spoken of as much. How much care do caregivers need in this case? Can you cite some examples, for instance, wherein the family's been able to take care of an Alzheimer's patient in a way that can set an example for the rest of us? People viewing the show right now, wanting to, possibly get some tips from you on how they can go about it.
Absolutely. You see, for the caregiver, it's not a 24-hour day. It's a 36-hour day or never-ending day. Because as the disease advances, the patients may be soiling their clothes, or they may just walk out of the house and get lost. So for the caregiver, depression is very common, anxiety is common, guilt is common, and panic is also common. Now, we do need to take care of the mental health. We do need to ask them how they feel at every visit. We do need to educate them that they need to take some me time out or some self time out. We also need to nurture them in a community where there is some caregiving sharing done, which can be done by a relative or a co-friend who helps out with the caregiving. And we need to put them in touch with societies. Like we have the Alzheimer's related disorder society in India. We have a Delhi chapter. We have chapters in all states. Now they have volunteers, and the caregiver is free to call them on the helpline, seek advice as to how to take care of the violent behavior, how to take care of the soiling of the clothes, how to take care of the wandering. So there are volunteers available 24/7 to help them out over phone, as well as even visit their homes, see the surroundings, make their homes more dementia friendly. You have to have a dementia friendly home. And there are certain adjustments at home we advise as a part of the society that makes it safer for these elderly people to be left alone. There are daycare centers, albeit there are very few of them. In Delhi, we just have one daycare center where parents are brought in the morning and taken in the evening, which caters to, and there are people, physiotherapists and psychologists who are working with these patients, making them do activities. So we need many more, like you have kindergarten schools. Every nukkad should have a wellness center for the elderly. And whatever it may be, the elderly can go there and engage in meaningful activities rather than passively watching the television. Sorry, I'm on television right now, but passive watching of television is a huge risk factor for development of dementia.
So there's lots more to be done still. We can keep talking about it, but until and unless there's change at the policy level, on ground zero, not much difference can be brought about despite these very meaningful conversations. There are so many follow-up questions I have, Dr. Manjari, one of which is also the whole debate on how much of a role do genetics play here vis-a-vis lifestyle. You've spoken of the correct lifestyle, correct diet, all of that will keep you away for as long as possible. But what if your genetic makeup doesn't allow you to do so? How much of a percentage does genetics make up for Alzheimer's or triggering Alzheimer's?
See, we all have some malfunctional genes, all of us, believe me. But what causes them to express? Have you ever thought that? So genetics is like a loaded gun. Okay, the gun is loaded with your faulty genes for Alzheimer's. There are 2-3 of them, which if you have, you will have early onset Alzheimer's. But you also have at-risk genes, which is the ApoE4. Now, if you have 2 E4, you're at risk again. But it's just a loaded gun. The trigger is not yet pulled. The trigger is in our hands, and the trigger is our lifestyle and environment. Hence, even if we have the genes, there is no guarantee that you will develop Alzheimer's if you haven't helped nature pull the trigger. So to prevent the trigger being pulled, you have to have whatever choices I gave you enforced upon yourself. Unfortunately, if you're too worried, if you're a very narcissistic person, or you're a negative personality, it's easier to pull this trigger. But if you're not, it's not going to be pulled, and you may never express Alzheimer's. You may have the gene.
Okay.
So, yeah. So
and the last thing, Dr. Manjari, since we're running out of time, and I want all these doubts to be cleared, nobody going back with any questions after watching this episode. The one last thing I want to ask you is, how much of a problem is this whole pattern of Alzheimer's going undiagnosed, untreated? There's no permanent cure, but there are medicines in place that can slow the progression of the disease. How important is it to get the correct treatment in time? And why are we looking at this pattern of people not ignoring diabetes, not ignoring hypertension, but ignoring Alzheimer's?
So let me tell you that the earlier patients come when there is a perceived change in memory, personality, behavior, language, calculations. The earlier they come, the more effective any therapy is. It's more easy to modify any lifestyle when they understand how it has to be modified. Okay? New therapies, the monoclonal antibodies, they work also when the patient comes in early. If they come in at the late middle stage or the last stage, the therapies are not going to work. That is why all of us, we want our patients coming in early so that they can remain independent and not be a burden to their family. They do not know, just like blood pressure, the cognition can be measured. The cognition can be measured by any neurologist. There are simple tests which are done. They are there in our national languages. We have the Mocha Hindi, we have the Mocha Bengali, we have the Mocha Telugu. So they're simple 5-minute tests which test out your cognition.
But that first conversation, Dr. Manjari, I think is very difficult. To be able to recognize that something is going wrong and to be able to have that conversation with your loved ones. For instance, your grandparent or your parent. How do you go about that first conversation, that you need help?
So really there is a denial. There's a denial because they think हम बूढ़े हो गए हैं तो ऐसा ही होना है, हम सठिया गए हैं. या फिर there is a denial because of wealth issues. They don't want to go there. But it is wiser that when you are in the early phase, you make a will You make a conversation with your family members, and your family members make a conversation with you. Papa, Mama, maybe your memory is going down. It's better to just get it checked and make sure it doesn't go down further. It's as simple as that. You don't get labeled as dementia. You may get a diagnosis of minor neurocognitive impairment, which is MCI, which is not dementia. But at least we know that you have MCI, and now we act with these steps so that you don't progress 15 to 25% every year to dementia. So even then, it's just a conversation about how, if it's going down, we just find out whether it is a minor neurocognitive impairment when it's going down, just going down, or it's something more than that and we need a PET brain, or we need some blood tests, we need some CSF tests, which confirm in the early phase itself. Dementia should not be stigmatized. It has to be understood. If you're going to stigmatize it, we are just living 100 years behind. We have to understand that if we act now, we save the brain and we save our caregivers from all the emotional burden as well as the physical burden that they will have at a later stage.
Okay, in last 30 seconds, Dr. Manjari, I also want to understand the gender pattern here. Why is it that 2/3 of Alzheimer patients are women? What are the factors at play there?
So, unfortunately or fortunately, women have hormones which have a particular purpose. And as menopause sets in, the protective hormones, they are withdrawn. And so menopause is a huge risk factor. The withdrawal of our ovarian, the sex steroids is a huge factor for development of cognitive decline at a later age. Also, women are more homebound. Of course, many of us are working, but it's not without stress. We do face a lot of stress at work. There can be physical stress at work. There can be toxic stress at work. There can be discrimination at work. We also tend to internalize stress. We also sleep less. Many of my nurses, they would be doing all the cooking in the house. They switch off the lights at 12 and they get up at 4 to make the food again for the whole family. So our sleep is also less, So there are many more risk factors. There are women seeking treatment, women getting treatment, women reaching the hospital, if you see in any study, is less. It's because inherently in our culture, the women are more homebound. And that's why we need, just like the Shivir which has happened at AIIMS, where the women clinic has started, we need many more women-dedicated clinics so that they can have a checkup, at least of the blood pressure, diabetes, their weight. Many of them become overweight because they're confined to home, they're not going out. So it's the same story again and again, and the menopause is again the trigger which, kind of snaps it out all into place to develop dementia. So again, many of these are preventable.
Yeah. Dr. Manjari, thank you so much for that very wholesome conversation, for really invoking some important thoughts in our minds. If you're watching this, viewers, and if this conversation hits home, do not ignore these signs. Reach out to your doctor as soon as possible.